question is the proper positioning for prevention of wrist pain, or how to treat, modify, adjust wrists that are in pain. So the first thing with wrists is that unfortunately most of us will at some point in time experience wrist pain. I have experienced wrist pain myself, and I have to modify and adjust my postures when I've overdone it on a wrist, and always remind myself these little tips. So the first thing is that in a down dog, which is one of the most basic postures, can be very difficult. So being basic, meaning all of the parts of the body are aligned correctly and comfortably. So the wrists themselves, the crease of the wrist should be parallel to the front of the mat, the fingers wide, and the middle finger pretty much being forward, and the rest of the fingers spread as wide as is comfortable. The distance between the hands should be the distance of the shoulders. Now, if your arms are internally rotated, meaning the forearm and the upper arm are pointed backward versus forward, external rotation versus internal rotation, the distance between my shoulders changes from internal rotation to external rotation by a little bit. So if I had my hands out with my arms internally rotated versus externally rotated, and then the wrists rotate themselves at the elbow, the distance between the hands should be a little different. At least it feels different when you're in the down dog. So hands being flat on the mat at all times if possible, with equal weight, side to side, front to back for the most part. Now, there's a lot of pressure that can happen or occur at the wrist crease itself and the bones right at the junction between the long bones of the arm, forearm, with the connection to all the little bones in the wrists. So by having the hands, wrists parallel, wrist crease parallel to the front, fingers are wide, the elbows from being pointed side 90 degrees to the side. If you were to do a military push-up, this is the difference between where the elbows should be. Having gone to military school, I know how to do a military push-up. And there are lots of variations, varieties, like right here, or the one-handed, whatever it happens to be. But the military push-up is more difficult to do when you are doing yoga, because the chaturanga push-up, if we were doing military style, the wrist crease is now torqued to the side because my elbows go out to the side. My shoulders are internally rotated because my elbows are out to the side, and it creates this bone being internally rotated versus externally rotated, which would be back to there. So the chaturanga push-up, the yoga push-up, is different in that the elbows raise the ribs, and the wrist crease stays parallel to the front, elbows go back, and we're in the proper alignment to come up to up dog. So it would be really hard to to come from a military push-up. I don't want to torque my wrist, but coming from a military push-up to an up dog is one, straining the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrists. Also, taking away the distance from the height added to the width. So this width could be here versus here, if that makes sense. So underneath the shoulders, my elbows are slightly pointed towards the back, not to the side. And because of that, my upper arm is now open to the front. So we can move this, maintaining the wrists flat on the floor. We can move our elbows. The overextension, over rotation of those elbows, the bowing of the elbow itself, hypermobile, will take away the height just as you would take away the height here. So by over rotation, over extension, you will remove some height that you get from being here and stable. So just being cognizant of those little tips and remembering in each posture, what are you doing with your elbows, your wrists, your shoulders, the shoulder blades, and can you gain more strength by getting more length? So the alignment for the wrist and the forearm angle with the floor in a down dog from a 90 degrees, so from 90 degrees to go more to about 45 degrees in line with the mat. So the view from forward again, if the hands are not flat, the wrist crease is turned out or in, elbows are out to the side, the arms aren't straight, the angle with the wrist is off, being able to find the wrist crease parallel to the front, fingers are wide, you've got your grippers. The angle with the forearm to the floor, maintaining about 45 degrees. And consistent with the alignment through the upper arm and the chest down to the belly and the pelvis. One straight line. The legs themselves are a whole separate issue, but the feet and the knees, if they're not straight or if the feet aren't down yet, that's okay. The first part of down dog is getting the upper arms, the lower arms, the upper body essentially in proper alignment so that the legs and the feet can go down to proper position. So working the little tips in where are your wrists, where are your fingers, where are your elbows, are your arms externally rotated, even in a down dog with your hands planted on the floor, and Are your shoulders more open, with the clavicles more open in this external rotation versus a military style push-up where everything is a little bit internally rotated this way versus this way, where you can raise the elbows to the ribs when you come to that chaturanga. Inhaling, exhaling, elbows are to the side, rolling up. My elbows are not out to the side, not hyper extended or hyper mobile, right hopefully where they should be and most comfortable. Pushing up through tops of the feet, all the way through the belly, upper chest, into the neck to get the full extension in the up dog on that inhale. And then exhaling back to a down dog, pushing again into the mat, keeping the arms straight. So how do you come up to prevent continued wrist pain or to treat wrist pain that is starting to nag you? To come up to a warrior or any position where your hands move when the foot comes up between your hands, at least halfway or to your fingertips. How do you prevent that? How can you come up without moving one or the other wrists or hands? How can you find that space? So that is what we will cover next time.